Welcome to Power of X-Men Action Figure Review. I'm the Uncanny Dayspring.
And I'm the Adjectiveless Flinkman, and today we're talking about Marvel Legends Siryn. Insert sonic scream here.
Flink, for the first time ever, and I didn't even think about this, you're the one who told me about this. This is the first time we have Teresa Cassidy in a figure format.
Yeah, I mean, we got her in Mini-Mates. I think she's really super hard to find, but so far as like a scale that I am all in on collecting, we have never had her in 5-inch. We never had her from Toy Biz Legends. This is the first time we have ever had Teresa Cassidy. And she's been on my personal want list since the 1990s. She's someone that I confronted Ryan Ting about when we interviewed him back in 2021. So I'm obviously completely over the moon to have her. Finally.
You were the one who told me that she was available at GameStop. And I was able to run over there like the second you told me about it and get her. She looks absolutely incredible.
Like the costume she's wearing is definitely the costume I've always wanted. I hear a lot of people refer to it as the Rob Liefeld. I have to get crazy here, crazy X-Stan here. It's not Rob Liefeld. It is Greg Capullo for his design from when everybody got new costumes in X-Force number 19. And I have to say, it looks so good in 3D. I'm so glad they chose this costume. I am just like beyond stoked to have her.
The back of the package reads, inheriting her mutant sonic scream from her father Banshee and raised by her criminal uncle Black Tom Cassidy, Teresa Cassidy forges her own heroic path with X Factor as Siryn. It says X Factor.
I mean, listen, she was a huge part of X Factor investigations, but I mean, this is not X Factor Siryn. Let's be very clear about that.
So before we get into the review of the figure, why don't we talk about the things that initially stick out to us that we thought were kind of lacking?
Well, I mean, the big one would certainly be that everyone is screaming about all over the internet right now, is the lack of a screaming portrait head. It's kind of wild to me that she doesn't have one. She is not screaming at all. She actually is looking pretty chill. And I think that's a pretty big miss.
You know, the head sculpt is actually really nice looking. She sort of looks like Natasha De Leon to me, if I'm going to be honest.
See that, yeah.
And I kind of like the effect of like the windswept hair. I mean, I'm thinking back to the Light Up series with Psylocke, where we got that windswept hair, and I was like, absolutely not. But I think it works really well here, like the effect. But I do agree with you and the rest of the internet. It's curious that we did not get a screaming head alternate because, like, it's sort of her namesake. It's her power namesake.
Right. And I totally agree with you. I'm not normally a fan of the windswept hair, but I think it works here. And like, if you can see her in my display behind me, I'm displaying her as kind of descending from the sky a little bit. So like the windswept hair and the cape going up, you know, that looks good. And I do agree that the portrait is nice. It actually looks a lot nicer than it did in pictures, but it doesn't, again, no pun intended, it doesn't really scream Siryn to me.
I'm looking at her father from the first
ever
flashback right there. I'm looking at his screaming face here. I agree. I think we really should have gotten one like that. And I also like how like the head tilts back like that, so you can have him like flying.
Yeah.
In that effect there. And I thought that technology was a little lacking here. I mean, I get it. Look, like the hair is like really hard plastic. So how are you going to get her head back like that? But it does feel like a missed opportunity, sadly.
In the interim, I'm kind of wondering whether the angry rogue alt head from the Pyro box set, it's not screaming, but at least it's kind of expressive and angry. I'm wondering if Siryn's hair might plop down on that head. I might give that a shot or have one of my customizer friends test that out for me. Someone who can separate hair from scalps a little bit better than I could. I struggle to give Kitty her Alan Davis hair from Miss Elizabeth.
So the other thing I think we should talk about is the cape, because that was something that we talked about with Ryan Ting. and he was talking about how we can get the capes attached. Now, I know I'm in the minority here that I love this Banshee figure still, but I do think something they did really well is how the capes attach right there. You kind of
Yeah.
like snaps in, and it's a cloth cape. This seems a little too flimsy for me. I don't know. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I agree. I like kind of the way that '07 ML Banshee cape attaches. I think the silhouette of the cape is wrong. I don't know that it's like attaching it to his legs was exactly the right place for the silhouette, but the idea of the pegs going into the arms and then pegging somewhere else on the body to give it that, actual up and down wingspan, I think is really good. But honestly, in my opinion, the best Banshee cape to this day is still the 1992 Toy Biz, where he had the whistle in his chest. Like, that one was executed perfectly.
Yes. I really love the Generation X Banshee cape, but
well, yeah, of course.
I have to defer to you on that silhouette because I think that's what works perfectly for these characters.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I don't know. I'm usually pretty easy to please, but this cape really, I have to agree with you. It's not doing a whole lot for me. I think the material is a little too stiff. I think it's kind of attached poorly.
It's just
I know
like
it's not
weird.
it's just kind of weird. And it doesn't go flat down. At least mine did. And I didn't mess with it too much. I think it may be possible to remedy that if you remove it and like turn it all the way around. Maybe it'll lie flat a little bit better, but that it seems to me like that it could go either way. I don't know. It seems to me like it could have been a little bit more functional from the start. And I know it's not exactly accurate to Banshee or Sirens, how their capes attach, but I thought they did, material aside, I thought they did a really good job with 90 Storm in her cape. And I feel like they could have done something maybe a little bit more like that for this.
Yeah, the thing about Storm, 90s Storm, I'm looking at her, she's right there. She has a really, really good like positioning on her cape. Like, it's actually attached as rings, whereas here you have to take off the hands.
Yes.
To like get in and like look at that. That looks like it's going to tear eventually. Like,
right.
It's going to tear for me eventually. And I would have liked something a bit more. Apart from that, though, I think, like the one I'm holding right now, like the paint apps seem pretty fine for me. I'm looking at her here. She's very posable. She has a flight stand peg on her back, which I don't know how yours work. I have like the clip on where I attach them to the waist.
Yes, I have the one where it goes through, where you just sort of open and close it, and it goes around a waist. I don't know that peg hole is deep enough for an old school peg flight stand, but I like I mentioned, I have her descending in my display, and honestly I think with the positioning of the cape, with her windswept hair, with her lack of screaming head, the only way you can really display her, I feel, is kind of descending. So I would personally recommend anybody out there track down a flight stand for your Siren, so that she makes her a little bit more pretty.
So who are you displaying her with? X-Force or X-Factor?
X-Force, of course.
Damn right. All the way right there.
Did you catch my reference there?
No, I didn't.
Do you remember the old Toy Biz commercial for like Tiger Stripe Wolverine and Mr. Sinister? And the song at the beginning was like, X-Force, of course, X-Men.
No, I don't remember that. What the? Now I'm going to have to YouTube
it. That might not be what they say. That might be like my retroactive, like making up lyrics for it. But that's where X-Force, of course.
When I got her out of the package, I put her with X-Force, of course. And I immediately loved seeing them all together. And I'm like, I want an X-Force animated series.
I think that X-Force, with their bright colors and big guns and pouches and shoulder pads and shit, is like absolutely rife for just a super over the top animated series. You're so right about that.
So how do we rank Siryn? Like, where does she fall on the Marvel Legends Hall of Fame for us?
As excited as I am to have gotten her finally after all of these years, I think the cape is a big miss for me. I think it's actually a bigger miss for me than the lack of a screaming head is. But those two things together, I think, kind of knock it down more towards the middle of the pack. Whereas like figures like Richter or Sunspot and Boom Boom, I rank those figures really high. So I would say, I would give her probably a 6 or a 7 is probably where I would rank her on a scale of 1 to 10. She's a perfectly good figure. The articulation is good. The portrait is nice. It's just a little bit off.
Yeah, for me, thinking of like female Marvel Legends, the number one for me is Polaris, 90s Polaris. I love that figure so much. And
Yes.
the worst for me, and it's a character I love very much, and I'm so sorry I have to say this publicly, is the Marvel Legends Hellcat. That to me is like the worst Marvel Legends like female figure ever. I
Oh, come on.
know.
We've had worse than Patsy.
Okay, maybe the OG Emma Frost, but this I agree. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not bad by any means, but I'm not as excited to have her. You know what I mean? Like I'm excited. Let me rephrase that. I'm excited that we have her, but the
Yes.
figure itself that I'm holding, I'm not like, oh my god. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. And
It's
that was like the reaction I had with Richter when had him in my hands. It's like, oh my God, this is captures the 90s. This captures the
yeah.
character. I love this.
Yeah. Well, even when I was holding like all of X Force together, like Boom Boom, for example, I still look at that figure. I'm like, we have a Boom Boom. And it's a very simple figure that's just done really well. So
Yeah.
I agree with you. No,
I
no,
mean,
no, wait. There's a siren.
oh, oh, isn't that just ironic? And, if there was one figure that I would want to have dropped early from the Bonebreaker wave, it's absolutely Siren. Like, there are no complaints that she's here like 8 months earlier than anticipated. And finally, in my display, one character away from finishing X Force.
Well, I would have really liked Maggot, but that's a conversation for another day.
I mean, as excited as I am for Maggot, what team is he completing? You know what I mean?
But anyways,
Oh.
boom, Bonebreaker, and we get the Bonebreaker accessory too as part of Siren. Looking forward to
And the details on that are insane. I can't wait to put the whole thing together. Dwight did actually call out the lack of a screaming portrait when they revealed this figure. And I feel like they already hinted at a re-release somewhere down the line, much like they did for Cannonball and his, no legs.
I'm really excited to have her too. And if we get a deluxe figure re-release or however they want to give it to us again, I will happily buy that 100%.
Now all we need is Farrell Wolfsbane in a Fang and Fur 2-pack. We can knock out X Factor. We can knock out X Force. Oh, hell, throw in Rachel and just call it the Hound, Wolf, and Cat, and we can finish the fucking 90s already.
All right, folks, this is our first review of Marvel Legends on our YouTube channel. You can hit me up at Power of X-Men.
You can hit me up at Flinkman.
Let us know who you want to review next time.